Welcome back to FreightWaves Now on this Thursday morning. We've got our next live guest ready to go, and he is the one, the only Mr. Supply Chain.
Mr. Supply Chain Daniel Stanton. You are on fleek this morning, looking sharp. How's it going, Daniel?
It's going well, and I just got to say, it looks a little bit like dancing, dude. You know, I'm seeing the movement there, and I love it. I love it.
I'm having fun.
Today. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Michael Vincent's really excited because he's all about the 4th of July. It's like his favorite holiday ever.
It is. It's one of them, that's for sure. Christmas and 4th of July go all out, my friend. See, the day after the 4th of July, I start decorating my house.
Stuff up.
That's it. Blow stuff up on the 4th, the day after I start putting the lights up for Christmas. That's how I roll.
We love it. Daniel, thank you for joining us on FreightWaves Now. I think this is his first time on the show with us since we've kind of revamped it. So welcome to the brand new format. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. We're in the middle of the year. We just hit halftime as far as what goes in our quarters, fiscal quarters. So talk to us a little bit about how Q1, Q2 went, and then what you see coming up for the rest of the year.
You know, I'm really ready for a halftime show with, no wardrobe malfunctions, no big surprises, just something kind of sleepy so I can go get some chips and guac and not feel like I missed anything.
I'm with you on that.
Right? It's so weird. It's like, we know that the supply chain world is crazy and hectic still, right? But after 18 months of this, it feels like we're kind of getting used to it, right? This moment almost feels stable. What were we saying? 30% outbound rejections for Atlanta? Yeah, that's okay, right?
Yeah. It's come down. It's loose. It's loose.
It's just normal. It's like I remember having this conversation not too many years ago with somebody with one of the big trucking companies, and I said, "Hey, how's that driver shortage going for you?" He's like, "Oh, it's way better. We're down to 100% turnover." Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So it feels like this is just the continuation of a conversation that we've been having for a year and a half about the bullwhip effect, right? And what that is. And I think at this point, everybody in the supply chain understands that, these bullwhips happen. And what triggers it is some kind of a surprise, right? A disruption either in supply or demand. The thing that, for folks that don't work in the supply chain and don't sort of understand the links in the system, it's a little bit harder to see how one thing leads to the next, and this, the ripples move up the bullwhip. And for me, that's the interesting part, right? Is trying to look at what's happening now, where we have more demand than we have supply, and then trying to anticipate, okay, so what's that next step, right? What's the next place in the supply chain that's going to get hit? And how long is it going to take for all of this to rebalance and kind of get back to steady state? It's funny with the amount of chaos that we've had through coronavirus and, a blizzard in Dallas and ransomware hack of, the Colonial Pipeline. Was having a conversation with a CEO not long ago. She said, yeah, I think about 5 years. I think if everything just kind of got back to normal and we didn't have any other major disruptions, it'll take about 5 years for this to work its way through the system.
It would be nice to get through a month without a major disruption, Daniel. I mean,
right?
5 years. Yancheng just came back online, arguably the largest port from Asia importing into the United States, right? And it just came back online. We're like, whew, at least we'll get through that backlog maybe in the next year, and things will start to smooth out, right? But what's next?
Exactly. But I was just reading about more cutbacks on auto production because of semiconductors, right?
Yeah.
Well, that isn't because a port was shut down. That's because the demand for semiconductors is increasing. We're using more of them in everything, right? And we have all these fancy talks about IoT and industrial IoT. Well, that's semiconductors, right? Every car that you buy now has tons of semiconductors in it. We don't have the manufacturing capacity. And, there was a big announcement that we're like starting construction on 2 new plants in the U.S. Well, it'll take years for those to come online. And that's a fraction of what the anticipated demand is.
Yeah, you don't set up a warehouse, throw a couple machines in it, and start stamping out semiconductors. It's like 5 years and $20 billion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's assuming things go well, right? That we don't have like a blizzard or a flood or an earthquake where we put the semiconductor up. So, a couple of things when you come down to, okay, I think we just have to anticipate that this is kind of a preview of coming attractions for folks that work in the supply chain. It's going to be a crazy few years. Generally, the things that we do to give ourselves flexibility involve expedited transportation, right? You were just talking about, spot over the weekend, right? If you don't have the capacity in place for your contract, it's all going to spot. So expedited transportation could be spot stuff. It could be, express courier delivery sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's one option that we use to give ourselves more flexibility to be more responsive. The other one is inventory, right? Well, there's been a lot of focus on inventory and also on reshoring, which kind of makes sense if you have warehouse capacity, right? Places to put it. And if inventory is cheap, which is largely a function of interest rates. Well, you look a couple of years down the road and say, well, if interest rates are going to go up, if warehousing capacity is constrained in some of our key markets, right? Inland Empire, Dallas, Chicago. Frankly, a lot of the stuff that we do to respond to these bullwhips, the upside of it, we're stretched. It's going to be hard. So I think all of that, what it comes down to is folks that work in the supply chain need to understand these dynamics. They need to understand the relationship between inventory and transportation, fuel prices and interest rates, understand where we have capacity, where you can get warehouse space, where you can get inbound and outbound transportation, and just constantly be looking at their network and making decisions based on what's happening and what they see coming down the road.
Yeah, and Daniel, I mean, what's happening, what's coming down the road, but don't you have to take a consideration of some of the, I guess maybe the bullwhip effect of your reaction to the bullwhip effect? I mean, Daniel, after Thanksgiving and you've eaten 2 turkeys and a couple pounds of mashed potatoes, et cetera, you don't run out and buy all new clothes, right? So how much do you let it stretch in order to not have excess capacity afterwards? Well, I mean, I know you do. When we've talked about that before, I know you do every year. But you understand what I'm saying. We're buying all this capacity, et cetera. When things start to come down, you have to take that into consideration as well, right?
Totally. And so, I mean, this is part of what the supply chain people have to do for the organization, right? Is we have to be that steady hand on the wheel. And instead of panicking and saying, oh my goodness, right, everybody's out of stock of toilet paper, let's go build a new factory. Right? You've got to have that understanding that this is the bullwhip effect. It's going to hurt. It's going to take a little while, but actually consumption hasn't increased. And so if we make long-term investments based on a short-term dynamic, we're just going to amplify it. We're going to make the problem worse, and we're going to end up with capacity that we can't use.
Daniel,
I'm a little bit afraid of that for folks in the trucking world, for example, they look at the current rates and they're using that to justify long-term investments in new equipment. And, at some point, we're going to catch up with all of this backlog, right? And the market will return to something sort of like rational. And then we could have more equipment, more people than what's really demanded. And that sends prices back to the floor. Right. And the most extreme example of that was what happened with West Texas crude, right? Right after the coronavirus up, when all of a sudden they literally were paying people to take delivery of crude.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Daniel, for people who aren't in the supply chain industry and who really don't have a good outlet or understanding of this kind of stuff, how do they get to start learning about it? Obviously, you've written your 2 books, but that doesn't you don't get people out there to pick up a copy of Supply Chain and be like, why don't I have toilet paper on my shelves? Let me figure it out. How do we communicate this to people to get them to kind of not take these drastic measures and amplify that bullwhip?
Yeah, that's the key, right? It is we take it so for granted in this consumerism society that you go to the grocery store and you've got, like 20 kinds of toothpaste on the shelf. And nobody thinks about, well, what is toothpaste actually made of? And what kind of packaging? And where is it manufactured? And how does it get transported? And that really is a big part of the focus with Supply Chain Management for Dummies, is to start thinking about everything in the world around us as supply chains, and how each of us is a supply chain manager, right, that makes these sorts of decisions in our daily lives. Some of us do it for companies as well. So I think the book is a good starting place. The other one is LinkedIn Learning. A lot of folks don't realize LinkedIn has this huge library of online courses now. Anybody that has a LinkedIn subscription can watch all of them for free. Some of them are free, even for people that just have a free LinkedIn account. And I've got the course that's really the best starter for supply chain stuff. I've got a course up there called Supply Chain Basics for Everyone. And if you guys want, I'm happy to send you the link and we can drop it in the comments to the show.
That'd be great.
However.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be great, Daniel. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be many, many books and documentaries chronicling what just happened over the last 18 months and into the future for a while that'll teach us quite a bit.
I heard something the other day on a podcast that I listened to, like one of the daily podcasts that comes out on Spotify, that was like, everything that's happened the last year has been the fire festival of basically the entire American supply chain industry. And I was like, it's a great way to put it.
It is a really good way to put it. A really good way to put
it. The thing I'll throw in that this, we're used to talking about the bullwhip effect now, but where that term first came from was an MIT professor by the name of Jay Forrester. He was the one that first identified this. And your point is, it's a hard thing to explain. It's a hard thing to teach. And so what he did is he created a game to illustrate it called the beer game, right? To bring it right down to earth, right? Where he lays out a beer supply chain and tries to get the brewery, the wholesaler, the distributor, and the retailer to all, to see the dynamics between their inventory when you have them placing orders and trying to anticipate. Marketplace is running on NPR, is doing a story all about the beer game today. So
excellent. We'll have to check that out.
It's a hot topic. Everybody right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to have you on again, obviously. Very informative, very entertaining, my friend. So, hey, you have a great holiday, 4th of July holiday. Don't blow up anything too important, all right, my friend?
Back at you. Thank you both. Have a great day.